Hello, I'm Jonathan Milam here with a demonstration comparison of some different practice mutes. And I've got a Tom Crown Brass Spa Best Brass, I think one competing with Best Brass, two Wallace mutes, and a Yamaha Silent Mute. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if I can still count, and a trumpet. Little Carol Brass model. This is what I use when I'm using practice mutes most of the time. Usually do this on the road when I'm in hotels. Give you an idea what it sounds like. We'll start off with the Tom Crown Practice Mute. Looks a little bit like a Harman mute, except it doesn't have any resistor to pull out. And the sound. And without the mute, what it sounds like. These are the best practice mutes I've run across, and even the worst of them is so much better than full volume. Okay, next up we've got a Brass Spa, very light, obviously a little smaller than the Tom Crown mute. Simple mute, extremely light. And then we have got a Best Brass. Now, here's the Tom Crown. Here's the Best Brass, a little definitely smaller this way. And then we get the Best Brass, very, very tiny mute. One of the nice things about this is just about goes completely within the trumpet. So I packed my trumpet in a heavy little fabric. It's kind of like a velvet, actually. And it's 2 layers. You could easily put this in here, frankly, get a little bell protection that way if you're traveling too. Okay, and the Best Brass is going to sound like this. Compared to the Brass Spa. And again, the Best Brass. And the Tom Crown. Gotta say, the Tom Crown probably is not the quietest of them. Very little back pressure. And some of these you do get quite a bit of back pressure. Now, interestingly enough, very famous Best Brass Practice Mute. This is, I believe, by a competitor. There is no label on it, but I believe that Dillon Music sells these. Look almost identical, not quite, just a little bit of difference. But the sound is, of course, very similar. And again, very, very compact mute. And again, the Best Brass, very similar. Very quiet, very, very compact. Now, my preference of all of these, any practice mute that I've had, and I think I've had about 11 or 12, is the Wallace Practice Mute. Really, like this little mute. One thing that I notice with a lot of these practice mutes is when you're doing interval jumps, they can become very flat as they go up, and some of them are sharp when they start. So the middle of your range is fine, but the low part is sharp, the upper part is flat, and it really kills me, like if you're going to do intervals. You got a 2-octave jump there, and I think this is pretty well in tune. Very impressive. I live in the United States, Charleston area in South Carolina right now. I've had this trumpet in Africa, had it in the Middle East, had it in Europe, had it in the Far East, the Orient, Japan, Hong Kong, Korea. I really like this mute. As much as I've traveled with it, and I just put it in a suitcase, don't wrap it up in anything. I did see one tiny little dent a few days ago. I can't even find it. Very nice mute. It travels well. Another option with this mute is it has what they call a resistor. So this piece comes out. Makes a little difference when you play. And when you put it in, I'm not going to poke it in all the way because it takes a pin and stuff to get it out. But I usually press it all the way in when I'm practicing, but when you do pull it all the way out, a little bit like a Harmon mute. Whoop, excuse me. But anyway, that's what you get, a little resistor difference, a little option there. And like I say, this is my choice of mutes. The one thing I'll say is I bought this mute used off Trumpet Herald, where I do a lot of sales and stuff. Someone, I guess as an aftermarket, had put a little rubber like a gasket on this thing, and it really gives it a much better setting. The Carol Brass pocket trumpet I'm using has a 5-inch bell. With this thing in there, it's a great fit. Now, this is the Wallace Practice Mute. As I mentioned, Wallace makes a compact practice mute, and it's very small, very comparable in size to the Best Brass. In fact, a little smaller, as you can see. The one thing I don't like about this one is they tell you it puts your pitch sharp about a quarter of a note. They do have a lot of padding here. I wonder if you sanded this down, if you might get a little bit better tuning. But at any rate, this is what it sounds like. And again, a nice compact fit. Much better than an unmuted trumpet. But hear the intonation difference? Definitely a little sharper. Of course, they mention that. They're very upfront about it. Nice thing about this is, again, it has your resistor. And very little back pressure on these Wallace mutes. I'm very impressed with that. I really, really do like it. Not sure why. I do play along with soundtracks, just music that I like. And this one plays a little closer in real tune. And that's probably the reason that I've traveled with it, even though it is a bit larger. Now, lastly, you've got what Yamaha calls the silent mute. And it is pretty quiet. You do get some back pressure. Pretty quiet. The Yamaha. Thing about the Yamaha that is nice is you can wire it up to this and then use headphones, and it sounds like you're playing at full volume. And even though there is, to my way of thinking, considerable back pressure with this, it's the Yamaha Silent Brass, the version 1 they put out. With this, you can hear yourself, and so there's less impetus to really push with it. And the way it works is, here they have got a cord, oops, one end goes into the silent brass piece, the other end goes into here, and then you've got another piece that you can hook up to headphones, and so listen that way. And also, this piece can be put into a cell phone if you want to. Play songs and then listen to it on the headphones as you're playing silently. So it is quite a system. And you've also got a little handy case that this fits in quite nicely. Got a belt loop here so you can stick it in. I will say, if you're going to use headphones, you're going to have an adapter with cell phone music coming in or something around you, and you're wired to the Silent Brass Mute, you're going to have 3 cords. And it can get very confusing as you reach out and you knock one of your cords off. But it's quite an impressive system. I have used it with the cords and everything put together. Again, my choice of all of these mutes is simply the Wallace Practice Mute. And intonation is really good on this. Back pressure is very manageable to my way of thinking. Probably the least with back pressure is the Tom Crown, and it's probably puts out the most volume as well. Always a trade-off. If you're going to get the more silence, you're going to get obviously the more stifled the broadcast is going, and so you're going to get more back pressure, I do believe. But some nice practice mutes here. Can't say that they're all completely silent, but pretty silent. The recording device that I'm using is probably about 5 feet from me, and so you're getting this. And I know several times I've sat with my son, would watch a sporting event, and I'd ask him, do you mind if I practice my trumpet a little bit? And I'd put one of these mutes in, and he always says, Dad, I can't even hear it. I think he's fudging just a little bit, but that's a good son. At any rate, hope you've enjoyed this today with practice mutes. Hope it's beneficial for you. Great luck on your trumpet. And as always, thanks very much for tuning in. Love the comments. If you have a suggestion, mute that you've tried that you really like, let us know about it. We'll put it out on the replies and just swap information as much as we can. Have a great day. Again, thanks for tuning in.